Welcome to Attican Plays Railway Empire. All right, hi, this is Attican, and welcome to the continuation of our Railway Empire Back to Basics series. We're going to take a look at what I think is an underrated and extremely important part of playing this game, or really any tycoon game or strategy game. Planning. How do we plan to conquer a scenario? So what we're going to do is I've had a number of people, most recently Zenadar, request that we take another look at Gold Rush. My play has changed over the years since the game first came out, and the game has changed. There's new functionality in the game that wasn't there originally, of course. And so we're going to take a look at Gold Rush. It's set in 1850. It's hard. It is fairly hard to hit all gold ticks. And we start with $1 million in San Francisco. We don't have to worry about snowfall or buying territories or the travelers functionality they added with Japan. This is part of the original set, the original game. All right, so it doesn't really matter. We're going to go in as the general. It doesn't matter. We're not going to actually play right now. We're going to talk a little bit. So those of you who don't like to listen, those of you with short attention spans, feel free to drop off. Those of you who want to learn how to play the game, stick with us and maybe you'll learn something. And if those of you who know how to play the game, I'd like you to put in comments about things you do, strategies that you use for this particular scenario, and comments about different ways you like to attack things. I will tell you that I learned some stuff by going out on the Steam forums and read some posts about passenger traffic on this particular map, and I also had a nice chat with my buddy Garnet, and I asked him about, what do you like to do with this? I asked him specific questions about special cars and stuff like that, and he went out and played this a little bit and came back to me and gave me some very nice ideas, so thank you, Garnet, for that. But I do want to say, okay, anytime you're playing one of the scenarios, if you're playing the campaign missions, or if you're playing the scenarios, or even free mode, you need to think about what's different about this one. Now, free mode, you won't see so many differences, but you will see different sets of tasks that you need to prioritize. These scenarios can be very different, and I want to take a look at the two things, I think, that make this one different, and the one thing that makes this one kind of challenging. Well, one of the things. Okay. First of all, the biggest difference is we have this. We have demand for gold. We have the Wells Fargo Bank in our hometown of San Francisco. It requests 1 carload of gold per day. So there is a demand, and they don't actually show it here. They should, actually. Later they started doing that. This weekly demand probably should be set to 7. For the gold. Now, they need the gold in the bank in San Francisco. And up here in Shasta, there's this thing called a gold mining warehouse. And this gold mining warehouse produces gold. And the bigger the city, the more gold it produces. We can see right now it has one of a potential 11. It's the internal warehouse in Shasta has 11 capacity, and it's right now has 1 ready to be shipped out, and it'll produce more over time. And as we grow this number, make put more people in Shasta, then the rate of production of that gold to be shipped to San Francisco will grow. So there's an opportunity right there, shipping gold to San Francisco. And the other place we see that is here in Carson City. It has a gold mining warehouse as well. Now, good news, bad news on these things where they take your special slots. We can't put our favorite, the museum, or we can't put attraction or university or whatever in San Francisco or Shasta or Carson City. Those spots are taken, but there it is. There's the gold. And let's just take a quick look at our tasks just to kind of get a framework for what we're thinking about here. They want us to connect San Francisco, Shasta, and Carson City. So this is all about, right, expansion of the gold mining towns. The gold mining towns are Shasta and Carson City. They want to connect it to the bank so we can move the gold. haul a bunch of freight, haul a bunch of passengers, no big deal, transport the gold. Now the gold, and we just saw how the gold gets generated, where it needs to go. So obviously we need to have freight lines running from these cities to San Francisco, or at least certainly from one of them. And then it says, really grow Carson City. Now that's pretty fast growth. 1856, we're in August of 1850. So we don't have a lot of time to grow that. Particularly, we want to do that in half the time to get our gold tick. So that's going to take a lot of focus. So we know we need to focus on growing Carson City. And then this is a biggie too. Producing 200 liquor means we have to own the distillery that produces the liquor. I'll tell you that the distillery needs fruit and sugar, so it's going to be very important to us to find fruit and sugar sources and be able to readily move those to a place where we can produce liquor at a big rate, because that's a lot to produce, 200 units. And then we have to have an express connection between San Francisco and LA. And then we have to grow 8 cities to 80,000. Now, so that means we need a lot of city growth to finish this off, but that's the more relaxed, we have longer to do that. These will be no problem. This one we need to make sure we do, and then this is a focus area, and this is a focus area based on how this looks so far. Optionally, build a university in LA. So that means that one of these 8 cities that we want to grow needs to be LA. And then transport 2,000 passengers from Salt Lake City to San Francisco without stopping. So when they say without stopping, they mean we need a nonstop line, a direct line that goes from Salt Lake City to San Francisco. It could pass through other towns, but it can't make a stop there. It needs to just run from Salt Lake City to San Francisco. That's a fair number of passengers. There's not a lot to think about it. Up here, we're doing 5,000 passengers really fast. That's not a lot of passengers. However, it pains me to say this, but for whatever reason, the developers have made a change in the code, or maybe it was introduced when they did the Japan changes to passengers or whatever, but they are actually now miscounting the passengers. So when you get a passenger count, and it's weird because it works correctly to count the 5,000 passengers, but it works incorrectly to count the 2,000. And there's theories out there that they're actually counting the number of cars you send. How many cars can you send of people to San Francisco? So I can tell you right now, we will not get a gold tick on that, and that just, pardon the pun, but that ticks me off. But they need to fix that as quickly as they can, and I've looked out on Steam, and it looks like they are addressing it. They're looking into it, but they've got to do the usual disclaimer about, we got a lot of testing to do, a lot of work to get it to work. All right, so, okay, that being said, how would we attack this? And let's just kind of forget what I just said about this not working and assume we're going to try to do everything. How would we attack this? How would we plan for it? So it's going to vary by character that we choose, and that's part of the planning process, is which character would we want to choose. We all kind of have favorites. I like Roger. I asked Garnet who he loves Doc. He thinks Doc is great in all cases it's interesting. His main reason is the free maintenance, not so much he likes the cheap cars, of course, but or the cheap trains, but the free maintenance is what he loves, because then you can get your maintenance set up early and run freight earlier without worrying about breakdowns. It's all good. But I love Roger, and of course the lady I think is just unbelievably strong, and we all have our favorites. So. But what are we going to do? So for this particular one, it's very clear. Obviously, we need to get San Francisco to Shasta, and then get to Carson City. But here's the thing I was talking about. The other thing that makes this a challenge. Look at this mountain range running across here. Really, all the way down here. We've got all this elevation change here around the Grand Canyon. We've got even through here, it's very steep. So basically, what we're saying is there's a fertile valley down here, and even it has a ton of elevation changes in it. You see all these when we're in track construction mode. See these lines? They're called contour lines. And just quickly, as an aside, because I get asked this occasionally, to get those on a PC, you hit Escape, you go to Options. See these tabs right here? You can pick them to set your sound options, graphics, and controls. You want to go to the Gameplay tab, go to Contour Lines, and turn this on. Gameplay, Contour Lines, and make sure that's on. And every time you go into track construction mode, you will get these lovely lines. They are invaluable in laying your track. They really are, especially on a tough map like this. So what I was saying is the thing that makes this hard are these mountain ranges, especially if you're trying to go from down here to up here, or even this. Look at this. If you're down here, LA, out on the coast, LA, San Diego, Yuma, Tucson, down way, where's Tucson? Here it is. Look at the hill. Look at the steep incline you have to get up to get up to any of your stuff, right? Even to get this stuff down there, it's got to come down this hill, or it's got to come down like this. Either way, it's tough. So that we need to think about that too, to think about the topography. Okay, so what's it telling us? All right, we can pick our favorite strategy, like we could do rapid expansion, boom, 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 maybe another one. And by the way, Garnet says this one's important, and we're going to get to the second thing. The first thing is the gold. That's the first thing that's unique about this one. The second thing is this. Let's look at Bodie. Let's look at Express Goods. So now Express Goods tells you the passengers and mail that want to come out of that town. And right now it's all going by coach, right? It's all going overland. There's no trains out there. But let's look at this. Look at that. 89 people right now, as we just fire this up, want to go from Bodie to Carson City. 34 want to go to Shasta. But only a few want to go to all these other towns, right? Look how high that is. Now let's just see if that's a freak or if that's just the way it is. Let's go to Winnemucca. 70 to Carson City, 33 to Shasta. Look at this. Okay, let's try one more. Let's go up here to Nampa. Express Goods, 35 to Carson City, 25 to Shasta. Drops off some of the neighboring cities, a few people, but it drops off as you go further out. Right? Okay, so that's unusual, by the way. That's not what we would typically see. Look at this. Wow. 53 people want to go from Shasta to Carson City. Let's look the other way around. Carson City, 53 people want to go from Carson City to Shasta. So there's tremendous amount of passenger revenue to be had on this map. And it all seems to want to go to the gold mining towns. Makes sense, doesn't it? It makes perfect sense. This is a beautifully put together scenario. Let's go to Gold Beach. But look at this. 63 people want to go to Shasta, and 32 want to go on to Carson City. Well, the first thing that tells me is if you use the lady properly on this thing, you would print money, right? How could you not print money, provided you went to these cities, which you're going to need to go to anyway. They want us to connect Shasta to Carson City. You would absolutely print money. Now, remember on our task, we have to go, and remember we're pretending this will work. We have to take all these passengers from Salt Lake City to San Francisco nonstop. But what we don't want to do then is include San Francisco in that deal. Now let's go to Express Goods here. There's some people want to go to Carson City, a few to Shasta. See, it's much bigger than the others. But if we look at San Francisco, almost nobody. Okay, so how in the world are we going to get 2,000 people, assuming this worked, directly there to San Francisco? Well, what we're going to do is grow Salt Lake City and grow San Francisco, and that way there'll be more and more and more passengers. So that one of our places we want to grow is way out here, Salt Lake City. This is something I haven't done in the past. I should have done. Had I thought through the whole process, I would have done this. You want to grow Salt Lake City. You want it to be one of your 8. Let's put it like that. So, okay. So we can, I've forgotten now, how big is that? 89, oh my word. All right. So I'm seeing, first of all, it's, to me, it's just crying, run the lady, run passenger lines, and then have like a passenger hub in Carson City where we have like a dedicated passenger line. We could even have 2 of them if we wanted to go nuts. We could take both of our stations, put in maybe 2 super stations, and dedicate them to passengers and run them all over the place, and just literally print money, literally. So I personally, I'm leaning toward run the lady and get passenger lines going out of Carson City, make Carson City like a passenger hub, hook as many towns as we want to whenever we want to, except Salt Lake City. We'll leave them out of that. They will not be allowed to play because we need to get the direct to San Francisco. Other thing is, if we're going to run the lady, we can make a very profitable line running LA to San Francisco, obviously. So that would work great. So I'm thinking, well, then the only thing we have to watch now, we got the freight and the gold. So what we want to do, in addition to having like the passenger lines and running out of Carson City, remember that's just to print money. As a startup, we really must make sure that we go to Shasta and get a freight line running here. That way we'll get goods, and we'll have a beer meat, which is great, and we'll have the gold coming as well. So we can have a profitable line running San Francisco to Shasta directly, and we can have Carson City can just be kind of a money maker for us for passengers. And then remember, we have to grow Carson City, so I'm kind of seeing a warehouse with goods coming in, the basic raw materials, wood and corn and grain and sugar and veggies and fruit and milk and whatever coming in there, and also making sure we've got a meat source. For that could be a direct line to San Francisco, right? It could be a direct line to Sacramento. It's going to cost too much to try to blast through this right off the bat. I can show you, here, to go like that, that's 1.9 million. And obviously we could, tweak it a little bit, cheapen it up, but still, we can't start with $1 million and spend $1 million on track right off the bat. That would be a poor plan. So the other thing is, I've always gone San Francisco, Sacramento, and then to Shasta, and then up here. And I've tried other times I played this one a bunch. I love this one. San Francisco to Shasta. And I think that's what I'm looking at all of this. I think my plan would be go San Francisco, Shasta, set up an auto line there so that we're getting the freight moving, and then have a line Shasta to Carson City, and I would double track it, and I would run a bunch of trains as the lady, dedicated trains, because these are beer, and not worry about the city growth this way, but I would just make a lot of money going back and forth like this, and then to extend to Bodie and Winnemucca, maybe Elko, and just make these all direct feeder lines directly to Carson City, so that we're making really, really good money. So that would be the plan I would come up with. The other one is I would build this, then, as I said, focus on building Carson City, and then when that's done, or when we feel like we're getting a handle on that, look into setting up our express line to LA. That's a fairly expensive line down through here, like close to $300,000 one way. one set of tracks, and then get that going to get that express line. And we'll also think about we have to grow LA early, so we would want to set up something down here, a beer meet for LA, which could be that. What I would tend to do would be, now, okay, good. This comes back to the other thing I said was a challenge. We could run like LA to Bodie beer meet, right, and grow those two cities. I would advise against that. Having practiced that and tried it, these going from Bodie to LA is no problem. It's all downhill. Going from LA to Bodie is horrible, and we would either have to limit how much we could take out of LA to go to Bodie, or we would just accept the fact that our trains are just going to sputter up through there. So what I would tend to do is say, okay, we can knock this bill, we can buy this meat in San Diego and turn it into beer. Now then we've got to run our grain from up here probably all the way down, but that's downhill. That's okay. Downhill's good. Uphill's bad. So I would say beer meat here, we're going to grow these two cities. We definitely want to grow San Francisco, Shasta, and Carson City. That's 5. Probably Sacramento would absolutely make sense. That's 6. And then we could pick 7 and 8. We would want Salt Lake City as 7. That's a meat, and probably Elko beer. That's 8. That would give us our 8 cities to grow, and then we could grow other cities as well as we get enough money. Because I have a feeling that with this approach, we will have ridiculous amounts of money. So that's what I think we'll do. We'll run the lady. We will get our cash cow will be the passenger mail lines to Carson City, and I think I'm going to go for dedicated passenger lines. Just really max that out, and have the bonuses and the mail car bonuses and all that stuff. And now, and then Garnet actually mentioned something interesting. He actually likes to start with coming to Carson City and going to Bodie, and then having trains run full from Bodie to Carson City. So he's always bringing full loads in there. I will say, no, I'm not going to do that. But it's not a bad thought at all. Honestly, if Cheney, Garnet, Feinroot, some of those guys, if they have a thought, it's a good thought. But I will kind of tend to stay with my style here, double track and run trains. So anyway, that's the plan. The lady, lots of passenger traffic here. Grow this one. You got it. But the main thing I wanted to get across here is, besides just wanting to hear my own head roar, is the idea of looking at what's different. The gold, how that's done, and all this passenger demand in Carson City and Shasta, and find a way to turn all that to your advantage. Don't make it kill you, make it your advantage. So let's go play this thing. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope it'll help you become a better player. I hope you'll like, comment, and subscribe, and join us for our next Railway Empire video. Thank you.